Good morning, Kim.
Good morning, Trevor.
How do you respond to the Justice Secretary's accusation this morning that your bill would put us on the slippery slope to what she calls death on demand?
Look, I've got a huge amount of respect for Shabana. She's a very good colleague and a good friend. It's absolutely right that this is a free vote. It's a vote of conscience. And you've had members of different political parties on your show this morning saying how they will vote. And that's absolutely the right thing. But look, in terms of the concept of a slippery slope, the title of the bill is very, very clear. It is called Terminally Ill Adults End of Life Bill. It cannot include anybody other than people who are terminally ill with a number of months of their life left to live. It very clearly states that the bill will not cover anybody else other than people in that category. So I think that's the first point. And in our country, Parliament is sovereign. So once this law is passed, it cannot be changed. So I think we just need to be really clear about the people that the bill will cover. And I can't even begin to tell you the number of stories, the number of emails, the number of people who've stopped me in the street to tell me of their really traumatic, harrowing stories, which clearly show that the law and the legal framework at the moment just simply doesn't exist to support people. And then we have the concept of the choice at the end of life, which is something I firmly believe in. And Liz Kendall was making those comments earlier on. There's a clear problem here and we need to fix it. And as legislators, I believe we have a duty to do that.
I want to come to some of the technical objections, but let's just start with, if you like, the broad argument. For example, many disability activists make the case that simply debating this topic in this way means that their lives come to be regarded as expendable. Do you understand that?
Well, I respectfully disagree with that. What I would actually say is quite the opposite. Isn't it brilliant that we're talking about the rights of disabled people? And I've met with a number of disability rights activists, and I've said to them, look, I will support you in your campaign for better rights for disabled people every single day. And that campaign must continue whatever happens with this bill. But it's very clear that this bill is about dying people. It's not about disabled people. And whilst I will fight for the rights of those with disabilities, I will also fight for the rights of terminally ill people who are dying. So let's keep that conversation going. So I actually think it's given a platform to have that conversation. And I'm meeting with Tanni Gray-Thompson next week to talk about that issue. So they are both very important issues, but I would suggest that they are separate campaigns and we should be fighting both of these campaigns alongside each other.
Tanni Gray-Thompson, the Paralympic athlete who is actually a member of the House of Lords, we've talked to her about this before. There's another issue, I think, that's been arising today, and that is the manner in which this debate is held. Part of the issue has been, should cabinet ministers play a part and so on, but I want to ask you about the terms in which, I guess, the participants address each other. Your colleague, Charlie Faulkner, has this morning said that he thinks that Shabana Mahmood is wrong, and he attributes her view essentially to religious belief in the sanctity of life. I'm sure that is indeed, from her letter, part of what she believes, but she also objects to the legislation on practical grounds. And I suppose the question is really, is that helpful to you in a way to characterise your opponents in that way?
Look, I set out very clearly when I chose to put this bill forward to try and ensure that we have a very robust debate on this hugely important subject, but also we are respectful and we are compassionate throughout that debate. And I would say that for the main part, that has been the case. But equally, people do hold really strong views on this subject, so they will speak passionately and they will disagree. I spent a lot of time over the last sort of 8.5 years looking at ways that we can disagree well. And I think for the main part that has happened, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be very clear about our strong views. And I understand, Charlie Faulkner's campaigned on this issue for a long time. He feels really strongly about it. And the point about religion does come into this debate. We have to be honest about that. There are people who would never support a change in the law because of their religious beliefs. Equally, within faith communities, there are a range of opinions. I met with the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Lord Carey, who feels very strongly that the law needs to change, as does Rabbi Jonathan Romain. So I think it's important that we consider people's belief systems as part of this debate, but we do that respectfully, and we acknowledge that people of different faiths also actually have different opinions on this issue.
The other question I think that's being raised by some people is the question of why now. Gordon Brown, for example, who has come out against it on the grounds of he thinks that there aren't enough safeguards against coercion of vulnerable people, but he suggests that we need to take longer. There needs to be a different sort of debate, a wider debate. Why push this through now?
Well, again, Gordon Brown is someone I have a huge amount of respect for, and I respect his opinion on this, but I do disagree with him. And I also disagree with the concept of pushing this through. That isn't what's happening here. This debate has been going on for decades. And we've now got 31 jurisdictions around the world where there is some form of assisted dying. We have the benefit of learning from the practice which we would want to potentially emulate in this country, and certain practices which we would absolutely not want to emulate in this country. So this is not a new subject. And I would say to MP colleagues, anybody who came into Parliament this time thinking this conversation wasn't going to happen must have been hiding away somewhere, because we knew that this was one of the issues that was probably going to become before Parliament. So I think now is the time for the conversation. And if we look at the public polling on this subject, there was a recent YouGov poll just last week which suggests that 73% of people think the law should change. There's been more polling this weekend. Our duty as parliamentarians is to represent the public mood, and is to listen to our constituents and listen to what the people of our country feel about issues. And that's why this debate, I think, does need to take place now. And the time feels very much right for it. And indeed, I would firmly stand by that we also do need a change in the law.
Can I ask you, just finally, one, I guess, personal question, really. Do you have doubts? Do you wake up in the morning and think to myself, what if I'm wrong and my legislation leads to people who don't really want to die taking their own lives?
No, I don't have any doubts whatsoever. I wouldn't have put the bill forward if I did. What I'm very clear about is we have got people now who the law is failing. We have got people taking their own lives. We have got families losing loved ones in very harrowing circumstances. And we have got people having very painful deaths. I've just had another email coming through, and I've had hundreds, thousands probably now actually, of someone who's a surgeon who has seen horrible deaths of people who've got incurable and inoperable cancers. So there is a very clear problem that needs to be solved. And actually, by creating a legal framework, we will improve the situation. If you assist someone, whether that's by going to another country for an assisted death, or if you are involved in someone taking their own life, one of your loved ones who really cannot cope with the fear or the pain of what their end of life looks like, you can be prosecuted and you can go to prison. People live in fear under those circumstances. That cannot be right. So we've got a duty to fix this problem. Now, the safeguards in this bill will be the most robust in the world. There are layers and layers of safeguarding within the bill. We make coercion a criminal offence. Do you know when we check for coercion now when someone takes their own life?
Yes.
When they're dead. And it's a little bit late then. So there's a very clear problem for me that needs to be solved.
Kim Leadbeater, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.